What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 206 of the TEPS podcast or the Everything Paranormal Show. Guys, welcome, and I hope you're going to enjoy the show tonight. We have a good one lined up. We're going to be getting a couple subjects. One is we're going to get into a sort of a brief subject, but it's going to be its own, and that is your EMF meter. Okay, so we're going to get into this. And also, I've got a bunch of other equipment. We're going to talk about some pros and cons, maybe how to use, how not to use. We're just going to talk a little bit of paranormal investigation tonight. So I am super excited. We're going to learn a lot. We're going to have fun. So guys, let's see. Let's start with some news. Of course, as some of you know, I've been getting ready to do public investigations in Bristol, Virginia, at a historic home, Pleasant Hill. It's the first 4 Thursdays in October. Tickets are still on sale. So if you're in that area, you're going to want to get them because they're going quick. And guys, I did an interview with the local news today. It's going to air soon. Once it airs, we're going to run out of tickets. Stitch rocks. Hey. So yeah, definitely go get your tickets. But guys, a lot going on. Getting ready to go to West Virginia next week to do a double shoot. I'm going to be going to Michigan to do some filming. We got some season 2 stuff we've been working. We already started filming season 2 for the TEPS Investigate series. So super excited, really happy. I hope you guys are having a good day too. But let's dive into tonight's discussion. Okay, so your EMF meter. All right, there's been much discussion and even some videos lately saying just throw them in the trash. There's no reason to measure EMF anymore. Okay, and so I just want to say don't throw them out yet. Okay, now you don't have to take my word for it. Again, this is a controversial subject, but you know, everybody loves EMF meters. Okay. And I do. I like them. And I'm going to explain why you should not just throw away your EMF meter. So, the first thing you got to realize is that, yes, they measure electromagnetic field or frequency. They can measure like the milligauss, of how much the electric field is generating. Now, there's different types of meters. There's single force, tri-force, things like that. We're not going to get into too much of all that. I just really want to say that they're a tool to measure those type of things. If you have excess, let's say you have a breaker box and it's wired up wrong, or maybe a bad, I've seen some bad light fixtures, electrical outlets. I've seen some bad wiring, and they give off a tremendous amount of bad EMF. Now, again, we generally will have a low dose or a low amount of EMF. Most people are not affected by this on average. There is a thing called like EMF sensitivity or something like that. All of this is online. You can easily go Google it. I'm not going to get too much into like reading a bunch of the technical stuff. Ultimately, what the research says is that people that are ultra sensitive to electronic stuff and things like that, they're not sure if it's psychological and all this other stuff. But what I'm talking about electrical devices. We're talking outlets. I'm not talking about your phone giving out, using, or Wi-Fi, using your 2.4 frequency and your 5 gigahertz frequencies and stuff like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about electrical wiring and things like that in a home. These meters are great for detecting excessive amounts of EMF. Now, the question is, can an electrical outlet give off enough EMF to cause, hallucinations? I personally believe so. Now, I'm going to say it. Now, Is there strong scientific documents out there right now? No. But you got to remember, I've been doing this for 30 years. And now, one of the confusions that seems to be is it seems that people get confused by EMF when it means like if you go into a house and you get EMF, well, first of all, a lot of people think these are ghost meters. So if you're walking around and it goes off, you're like, oh, this must be a ghost or something, or like a electrical spore. This has got to be a ghost. They're not ghost meters. Okay, they're not ghost meters. Okay, let's just put that out there. Okay, now, again, we're going to go over how to use this tool. But right now, like I said, you're going to walk around, and that's what most people do. They walk around, but also that misconception I'm getting to, they feel like that the EMFs, or when they go into a house and like when 3 out of 4 people experience a certain feeling and maybe they see something in the corner of their eyes or feel like something's there, that correlates with EMF. And that's not true. So don't think that just because your meter, maybe it's picking up some EMF and you have a weird feeling about something, but then you do the research and they say, well, you're probably not affected by EMF. Well, chances are you probably weren't being affected by EMF, but it doesn't mean that the EMF wasn't telling you something. But what you're feeling, there could be other environmental conditions. One thing that's not talked about a lot or enough, and it used to be talked about by some of the old school investigators, even back when I was investigating like 30 years ago, was ions. Negative ions are good for us in that sense. If like a waterfall, for example, gives off negative ions. I know when you hear the word negative, but it's kind of in the world of ions, the positive ones are the ones that actually hurt you. But if you're like at a waterfall and there's a bunch of like negative ions that come off that, that's why a lot of times people will go to nature and go to a waterfall and it'll make them feel good. Now, negative ions can occur in indoor pollution and things like that. And, sometimes with air conditioning, like really closed in spaces, maybe really not good ventilated houses and things like that, or air circulation, things like that. So you may have that situation as well. And you can be affected by positive ions and can cause hallucinations and stuff. But again, we're talking paranormal investigations, right? So you could be affected by a ghost, right? It doesn't have to attribute to a specific field. We're always trying to gather evidence. We're always trying to gather data to find out what exactly that field is, right? So again, that's why I wanted to kind of get into that. So you got to remember, on most of all your devices, you have the original purpose, what it's designed to do. Okay, any device you get, there's an original purpose. Now, these purposes will break down into what I call like almost like 4 categories. One is probably one of the most important is it's going to collect some type of info. Okay, whether it's a level of something, a measurement, or even like a distance type of thing. It's going to collect some type of data for you, maybe even audio. Maybe it's an audio recorder. It's collecting audio data. Maybe something's collecting visual data, thermal data, infrared, full spectrum, whatever it is, it's gathering data. Another function that and it's also kind of going along with the data, is that you can use this data to debunk things. Okay. It does, you can look at some of this stuff and say, hey, this is what it's not, or there's nothing here, or we're not getting anything. Maybe you're experiencing some paranormal, but you're not getting A, B, C, D, and E, and maybe you're getting some EMF, and you rule out a bunch of things, except maybe you do have a few hits on a few different things, temperature or, whatever. This is just part of how you start to deduce things or try to line things up. So the third thing is a lot of these devices, not all of them, but there's a lot of these devices that can be used as a communication device. So again, even if you don't want to go throw out your meter, you still can use this as a communication device. You can turn this on, you can set it down, you can ask for spirits to come and touch it, and you may get a response. And if you're able to get quite a few intelligent or seems to be responses without doing anything, that's great. I've seen it happen over the years. I've seen it happen in the middle of the woods, even on my Blue Mist Road special I did with Phil. We were out in the middle of the woods and Phil broke out his K2 meter and we were starting to get responses. Okay. He wasn't doing anything. I was standing there. I wasn't, manipulating anything. It's just, it was awesome. But then you may only get it for that little bit out in the middle of nowhere and then it goes away. So how do you explain it? So again, don't just throw away your meter because you think it's not serving much purpose, because from what I understand from some people that were saying that, they just felt like EMF was causing the hallucinations, but then according to the scientific studies, you really aren't going to get that, blah, blah, blah. Now, but there's more to it. Hold on to your meters. Use them. Now, here's another way that I have used this meter. And also one of my good friends, some of you all may remember Bob. Now Bob was, of course, the head guy, spectral tech there. He used to be by the book. And Bob, one thing he told me one time, he told me about a case study that he had, and I believe him. And I've also had some similar things happen over the years too. So he had a couple, and they weren't attention seekers. They weren't, they really didn't want people to think they were crazy. They were having paranormal experiences. So Bob went in there and he did a baseline reading. He went around and he swept the house with a EMF meter. And one thing he discovered, interesting enough, is that right where the couple lays down at night, where their pillows are, or their head lays, was extremely high EMF. And he found out the bed was pushed up against the wall where there was this bad wiring in the wall. And apparently this couple was only experiencing paranormal when they lay down at night, and it would happen later through the night. So you can sit there and tell me that EMF doesn't cause problems when cases like that happen, because that tells me right there, yes, EMF can cause these problems. This couple didn't want to be haunted. They weren't looking for attention. And when Bob suggested to move the bed to another wall until they can get the outlet fixed, their paranormal went away. Now, in that case, again, those were caused from that high electromagnetic field, and that was just a lot of electrical coming in that area. Okay. They weren't sleeping with their head next to the router or something. Okay. It was nothing light. This was heavy. So in this case, this is going to bring me up to my fourth category of the use of a device. Sometimes a device like this could potentially be a placebo effect. Okay. And what I mean by that is, let's just take that case that Bob did and that couple with the EMF. Even if the EMF was not affecting them and somehow it was psychological, then by Bob exposing that bad wiring, making that move, the couple did all that And you can just say, hey, psychological. It went away. It solved the case, all because Bob had an EMF meter and he didn't throw it away. Okay, so that's why I say a placebo effect could potentially be the fourth use of a device. Okay, because again, sometimes those things can have that effect. Okay, and make people feel better sometimes, even if it may not be true if we can't scientifically prove it. All right. In the world of paranormal, we know scientific evidence is very short. Okay. Now, it's also good to know your meters. You know, this one here, if you look at this meter, this in particular, this is on an authentic K2 meter. You really want to get that. This is the generic. This is the China version. You can see the difference. Good. This is the real one, half cost. Okay. All right. Now, you can also get your something like this, which is electromagnetic field and radiation. So it's electromagnetic, it's an electric field and electric radiation. Okay. You can see there's actually two measurements on there. So you can see we're just we were picking up a little bit of a magnetic field, you know. But this is another great little device. Again, this helps you if when you have a couple devices during investigations, you can kind of cross validate. And of course, you can also get the fancy. All right, you want to get like a fancy, cool looking one. You can also get the fancy one. It's not going to give you, and yes, there is a gauge on the back, so you kind of know where you're at with the levels. But this is just going to give you indications, right? It's going to give you indications that you're seeing some field. When it's really lighting up, this will also make a light noise. And when it really lights up, that's when you're going to want to probably break out your other stuff, get some solid readings. So I just wanted to be able to kind of go over with you guys a little bit of why not to throw away your EMF devices and really what's some good use that you still can do. Again, communication is a great one. You can still use them and they light up to help show the communication really well. So let's get into the next subject, which is going to be investigation methods and equipment, right? Different things. We're going to talk about the same stuff with new equipment. All right, guys. So we are going to get into discussing the good and bad and different things to use for equipment and how you can use it, what levels are there in investigating. So you're not going to want to miss this. So first of all, let's define what it means as I itch my eye. Let's define what it means for investigations, because this is a huge clarity. So this is another problem that I see is that, okay, if you have somebody on YouTube and they're going out on a ghost hunt, okay, look, you can kind of mess with them depending on, I guess, how they act with their evidence. But you got to remember, the first level is ghost hunting. Okay, that's what I call ghost hunting. You're just going out. It's leisurely. You might take some piece of equipment. You might take an EMF meter, a camera. You may take an audio. You can take some equipment, but it's usually not meant to be scientific. It's not meant to truly prove anything. It's if it's anything, it's just to sort of document your experience and heighten your experience and have fun. It's a fun activity. That's what ghost hunting is. Okay. The next level, then usually that warrants a paranormal investigation. This is when you start getting into, if you are the type of ghost guy that you want to solve things. If you're going into a situation saying, I really want to try to find out some answers. I really want to try to, cross-validate some things, then this is where you're going to start getting into paranormal investigation. This is also if you start taking on residential cases or even commercial cases. It's usually when you're trying to help people. This is where you're going to actually do paranormal investigations. This is when you need to start being a little more careful about, your devices. And this is where you're going to use multiple devices. You may have your EMF, you may have temperature, you may have audio all going in these rooms. So if something happens, you can try to catch it on multiple devices, not just you walking around with an EMF meter. So paranormal investigations is, again, that next level. The third level is when you sort of you're still helping people, but you're sort of going that extra step and you are just really trying to be scientific. This is when you are like, again, multiple devices, things to try to cross-validate in specific rooms. You're trying to isolate things. You're really taking above and beyond. So I wanted to kind of separate that from a normal paranormal investigation. I called this one more of a strict scientific style. And then the fourth one is going to be your ultimate. This is going to be more for the sort of the lab nerds that they're not there to really solve a problem for any kind of customers. This is going to be paranormal research. This is going to also fall into scientific experimentation, where you're going to go through your scientific methods. Now, we are going to talk so what's the difference? Like, how do you do a scientific breakdown for a paranormal, for a ghost hunt? It's very hard because again, there's a lot to it, but basically what you have to do for your scientific method is, one, you gotta come up with the question, right? What's the question? All right. Maybe that question is there such thing as a ghost, right? Whatever the question is, or is this place haunted? Whatever that question is. Next thing is you have to do your background research. You have to research about whatever it is you have that question about. Okay. Research it. 3, now you got to construct your hypothesis. All right. What do you think? 4, you got to test your hypothesis with an experiment, or maybe multiple experiments, but you have to test with experiment. And then finally, or close to finally, you're going to analyze your data, and then you're going to draw your conclusion. And then you're going to communicate your results. That's usually when you publish a study or something, right? And when you say, hey, or if you reveal it in a video or whatever you want to do, this is how you would do a scientific process. Now, of course, there's laws, and scientists kind of get mad because even if a paranormal investigator follows those, what most scientists have problems with is in the testing, right? And the testing has about 5 sort of things too. It's also observing your test, questionings, and then your hypothesis formulation, but your methodology, and then your results. So your methodology is where a lot of these scientists get their panties in a bunch when it comes to the devices and things like that. But again, when you use devices and you have hypothesis and all that stuff, this is where your research has to come in. When the research part of when you're setting up all your scientific experiment is, you can't just say, well, if you make it too weak, if you just say, hey, your hypothesis is, well, because of this, this, and this, but you don't include the research of the tools you use to test your experiment, the methodology is corrupt itself if you're using bad science. So you have to try to find, how can you prove this with this device? Can this device measure that, or can it give you these advice? So again, this is where it's hard for people to prove paranormal. So, all right, let's get into some stuff. So basically, What's one of the first things you need? Probably, well, maybe not first things, but one of the basic things: flashlight. I happen to have a TEPS Investigates flashlight, but get your flashlight. Now, this one is just a single turn on, turn off. You honestly, you probably are going to want to get you um, something that's got a couple adjustments on it, like a really nice 600 lumen, but it's got the adjustments. Like mine, I have like mine that I use during investigations has 4 levels of brightness until it till the battery life goes down a little bit. Then there's 3. So, but it really helps because sometimes it's like too much light, and but that's important. And we're not going to go in order of importance, to be honest with you. But another good one is going to be your audio recorder. Okay. Your audio recorder. Now, remember what I talked about. We want original purpose. This can be used to possibly even debunk some things, or in this case, collect information, and it can be used as communication. All right. So, this is where you can record and try and capture disenchanted voices, or disembodied voices. So, audio recorders are very important. This is an H1N Zoom. It's got the omnidirectional mics up top, and this is all preset. So this is usually really good. I normally use this as a pocket mic. I lock out everything. This is actually my lavalier mic. So I have a microphone plugged into this that runs up my shirt, and this is what I record myself on for separate audio. I have a different one coming in. This is also, and I have like multiple recorders for EVP purposes that you can put around the house. Now, you can use, again, something like a baby monitor. Okay. There's another part to this, and there's more pieces. I just wanted to show you the easy part of it. Baby monitors are really good to have one in another room, another in the other. You can sit there and actively listen to white noise in the other room and see if you're picking up any voices or anything like that. Baby monitors are really good. Oh, and because I wanted to talk about the pros and cons too, also remember, don't make any assumptions. With the recorders, there's the thing about pareidoia, and pareidoia basically means that when you hear noise and then you associate a word to it, you're like, lemon. You're like, lemon? Lemon. But so pareidoia can be really hard. What I don't like is when it comes to EVPs, there's 3 classes, A, B, and C. Okay. A, we'll just start at the top. A means that if somebody, A to me anyways, means that if somebody was to listen to an EVP, if I played you an EVP and I played it to 10 people, 9 of them would probably say the same thing. They'd be like, oh, that easily said lemons. Oh yeah, they said lemons. But then maybe that one person was like, I don't know, maybe it said Gemin. I don't know. But probably 9 out of 10 people, they're going to be the ones that that's a class A. Unfortunately, you hear a lot of people online that will play class A EVPs, and they really are class Bs. Okay. A class B is typically when you play that recording and you get like half. You get like half the people. It's kind of mixed about what's said. That's a class B. Now, a lot of times they'll put the words on the screen for you, so that helps it to be on the high side of B. But a lot of times, if you just don't look at the words and you try to really isolate yourself, if you just can't get what they're saying, then it's probably a class B. Class C, of course, is probably one of the most obvious. You're only going to get a couple people that say, yeah, it sounds like a word, but we just can't, when you know that there's some kind of word, but you just can't make it out. It is something that it doesn't sound natural, but it does sound like a word. That's usually class C. So You can't put much faith into any of those either, but I love EVPs. I love EVPs, especially any kind of class A or even a good class B. On the high side of class B, when you know it's a word, you just can't agree on what it says. That's still awesome. That's still awesome. So recorders are really good. So, speaking of recordings or pareidolia, let's just get into spirit boxes. Okay. Now, this is an SB11. This is a good one. This one actually has 2 scans. This can scan forward in a forward direction across radio frequencies. And of course, it can also scan backwards. So I like this one because, again, you're scanning 2 different directions. It's pretty nice. So in theory, because the frequency, the interval, depending how fast, whether you have it or you have it really fast. I like to have a good medium pace because the theory is that if you hear a word that's over multiple frequencies, it's a word from the spirit, not just like a glitch of like a radio DJ or things like that. Do I put a lot of stock into the spirit box? No, but I do like good ones like the SB11 and even some of the SB7s. They were always really good. So I do like them when they are effective like that, when they have good quality. And the other way to use these, a good way to use these now. Okay, so first of all, how are these used poorly in the investigation world? That's usually when people just claim a ton of things are words. Maybe they're not, but sometimes I've seen them kind of be like, oh, they said this, oh, they said that, and it's like, I don't know about that, but there's that. But a good way to use this as well is what's called as using the Estes method, which the Estes method means that you are going to, there's usually on here, on all of these, right, you have headphones. Okay. So you can plug your headphones in and you run this. What you do is you take somebody, you sit them down, you put a blindfold, and then you put over the ear headphones and you turn this up. So all they hear in their ears is, and then you just tell them, you say, if you hear a word, like a full word, not the part, not partial, but if you hear a full word or Jonathan, or you hear a word like that, you say it out loud. And then what happens is you and maybe even some other witnesses, or like you have an audio recorder, and you just sit there and you ask questions to the spirits. And if your buddy who's blindfolded and has the spirit box, maybe they'll say Jonathan. Like if you're like, hey, what's your name? And then all of a sudden your buddy says Jonathan, you're like, wow. So sometimes it can be really cool. I was blindfolded one time. I did the Estes method one time with with my friend Matt and his paranormal group, SRS Paranormal, and when we did a public investigation, and it was like apparently a really good session. Now I couldn't hear anything, I just was calling out things, but when they finally lifted the blindfold, everybody just had this like look on their face like, holy crap, we just witnessed something awesome. So I kind of missed out, but apparently it was pretty cool. So that's what I said. Now, of course, I've done some myself and had some pretty good luck with things. All right, and we'll kind of move a little bit into. So another thing is going to be laser grids. Okay, now laser grids are important. This one's dying. Look at that. But at least you all saw what it was. All right. So the laser grid is important in like you can set it across a room, a hallway. Now, here's what not to do. What not to do is sit there and worry about a couple dots that black out. I mean, you could get a bug, a fly, whatever. So you could have a couple of the dots black out or something, like don't stress out. What you're looking for is somebody to walk across that bitch. Okay. That's what you're looking for. All right. So that's why I'm saying when you see shadows moving across there, that's different. And a lot of times what you want to use it in conjunction with is a static cam. You want to have a static cam. That way, while you're off investigating, that room is not to be, gone into by any teammates. That's where the grid is. And that way in the future, when you look through the evidence, you can scrub through there and go, oh crap, I just saw freaking movement across there and then you can usually make sure nobody was there at that, timestamp, all that. Trail cams. Trail cams can be a useful tool as well, especially when you, of course, investigating outdoors. But even, in some areas of the home, you can set these up to motion capture anything that moves without wasting a bunch of other battery things. But this is another thing I like to have as well, trail cams. And of course, you want to have yourself a collection of these. I've got these static cams. I've got 4 or 5 of these things. You can put these static cams on your tripods. A lot of these will have the infrared lights on them, and these are just great to set up statically. They work great. Some of them, the bad thing about a lot of those are the China cams, and the battery life suck on them. So they'll be good for the first day or two or so, the first few events, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, you pretty much got to be prepared to plug those into an outlet or have a portable generator. I have this little portable little electric generator, and it's great for plugging in my static cams in houses that I don't have an outlet or something. So we'll get into motion. So motion is important. There's a couple things. You can set up some cat balls. Now remember, these cat ball motion things, they're going to be difficult because, again, every little motion is going to set them off. I don't even know if I can get it to shut off now. But once it shuts off, all right, so it's not going to shut off now. Oh, it's off now. Oh, and then see, and then you set it back off. So these motion balls aren't bad. They're kind of a nice little tool. You put them on the ground. You can put them with a static camera. Again, if you're filming a room and a static camera, because the other thing too is you don't, as some of you know, in some of these older homes, when you're in there, you can walk around the floor and you can move things from the other side of the room walking on the floor. So these are only really meant to be in certain static areas where you're going to have static cams, and there's not going to be anything disturbed by motion on those. So just be cautious with that. Of course, the other thing is going to be your REM pod. Your REM pod is the higher the degree of close I get to it. You see how it's going around the horn there? All right. And there's also a temperature light. Yes, I hear you. There's also a temperature light. You can adjust the range. So if you want it a little more sensitive out here. But again, what's nice about this, you have this alone, and nothing's going to really, I don't know if I can, but generally speaking, nothing's going to really touch this. See, it's not so much motion activated as, again, it's proximity. See? So that's what's really cool about this antenna. You can set these up in the rooms, and it's going to tell you, especially if you have a camera on it, if you're watching it, you can see just how close a ghost gets. Now, is it a ghost, or, I mean, is there other possibilities? Again, remember I said don't make any assumptions. But again, there's also a temperature light on here as well. So if a temperature, I think it's like a 5-degree drop or something. I mean, if you have a good temperature drop, that temperature light will go off, because you're going to have some fluctuation in your temperatures, but they're usually natural. You'll have a temperature drop a degree every so often, just natural as the night goes on and it gets cooler. But when you start getting like a cold spot and you get like that 5-degree jump, that's where there's an alarm on there as well. So that's kind of nice. I have another REM pod that was built by my buddy Josh from Southern Afterlife, and it's just a proximity sensor. There's no temperature on it. So that's nice too, though, because that kicked off in episode 5. And when you guys get a chance to see episode 5, you'll see what I'm talking about. So it's pretty cool. Now, so here's another, this is what I would call sort of like a bad tool. Okay. This is something because people go and they play Phasmophobia online, like a video game, and they say, hey, and they see a temperature gun. All right. But see, if you look, there's a laser. Okay. So what are you doing? You're not shooting the ambient temperature right here. You're hitting and you're saying, hey, right now, my wall is 68 degrees over there. Okay. That's all you're saying, is that the wall is 68 degrees. This doesn't really do the ambient temperature. So now you can keep this in your arsenal. I keep it in my arsenal just in case I want to know some temperatures of the walls and the stuff around me. If I want to shoot some basic temps around the house, just to kind of get an idea of how things feel. But in all honesty, they do have ambient temperature gauges that you can walk around with, and that's going to give you more accurate measurements for temperature. But I wanted to point this out because, again, these all these things fall under the like, they all serve an original purpose. You can use them to debunk things sometimes. You can either collect information with it, or sometimes you can use it for communication or placebo effect. This is usually not much of this is only for a couple things on there. And again, not much for paranormal. Another good tool to have that I would say too is the dowsing rods. Now, this is another controversial one because, again, some people talk about micro movements and the dowsing rods and blah, blah, blah. Like, I like them. Again, are you going to use this as part of the scientific method? This is what I'm talking about. If you're out ghost hunting, when I go film a show, most of the shows I film are ghost hunting, because I wouldn't consider them paranormal investigations, because most of the locations we go to are like historic homes and businesses, things that they're not really wanting you to solve the problem. They don't need help. So we're just going there to have fun, gather information, and see if we can get spirits to communicate with us. That's the big thing, really. So I see you. What's going on? I'm glad to see you pop in there. But yeah, so I think that I cover, and then we got some additional lighting as well. So again, we have infrared lighting. Now, infrared lighting, what is this going to do for investigations? Not much, other than if you're running night vision cameras. So sometimes, like, I'll take one of these handy cams. If you notice, they have a very small IR light sometimes. They just don't have much infrared. Okay. This, you can turn it on. You see there's a little red light, but this you can turn on at night and set it next to, you can even focus the beam on this a little bit for distance. There's like some distance focusing on here. So you can get this to shoot down more of a hallway, so you can get a better black and white image for your static cams. So sometimes, like this, they do sell like actual camera blocks of IR, but I just happen to get this free with some other purchase one time. But this IR, that's what this IR light can do. Another thing that's used in video games for lighting a lot of times and is the black light, right? So the UV light. So you look for like ghost fingerprints, in the video games. Um, so what do I use that for? If I'm like in historic homes or whatever, I'll use the UV light to go through, check the sheets, no, but like check the floors, look for murder scenes. I mean, you never know. That's about all you can really do. There's not a lot you're gonna probably gain from the UV light stuff. It is cool to like just mess with it and see what you can find, but a lot of times I don't waste a lot of time during investigation because investigations get pretty long and you get pretty tired. So I tend to try to keep things as short as possible. Um, anyways, I think that probably will conclude a little bit of the lessons about some of the variety of tools you can use. Good, bad. Again, don't assume a lot of things. But if you're going to do paranormal investigation and you want to be scientific about it, use multiple instruments, try to cross validate. That's going to keep you out of a lot of trouble. Again, there's so many skeptics out there. You just do the best you can, and but if you're going to try to go to that scientific level, good luck. And if you need help with it, you can always reach out. um, but most people, look, if you're watching somebody, especially if you're a critic out there, if you're one of those sitting back there and you're like, EMF, the scientific methods, and blah blah, hey, calm down. Most people are just having fun. Okay, we're having fun online. We're trying to show people. Now, again, there's a lot of fakers, unfortunately, with online. A lot of fakers. But if you can find people you trust or whatever, just like I said, you can trust my show, I guess. I don't know. I don't fake. So, but again, you just got to have fun, enjoy it, things like that. So, there you go. All right, so let's move on to the final bit, which is anything that you guys might have for me, but also any announcements I have. So again, going to be traveling to some different locations coming up. West Virginia, Virginia, uh, Michigan. I'm going to be we're traveling, going to be filming, getting ready to do a double shoot here soon. Pretty excited about that. So again, we're filming season 2. So if you guys are excited for season 2, TEPS Investigates, still trying to wrap up season 1 with that last 5th episode, but it's been a struggle in the edit. So unfortunately we did have like one of the microphones was wrong, and things like that. So we had some audio corruption, but I salvaged a lot of it, so it doesn't sound too bad. But we just had a few technical glitches along the way, but it was a great investigation though. So I'm excited for that season finale, that number 5. I can't wait to get that finally edited soon. Also, for those of you that may have missed it, I was sick for the last week. I didn't do a show last Thursday due to illness. And then Monday, we finally figured it out. Well, technically, you guys probably know Beyond, and, we're still friends despite obviously our situation. We're still really close friends. And when I got sick Monday last week, when I started showing certain signs, probably on like middle of the week, Wednesday or Thursday, that's when she really started doing some research on the symptoms I started having. And she actually diagnosed it herself. And she said, "Hey, I think you have a rare disease." And I'm like, "What?" And then when I went because I went to urgent care Wednesday, but then they didn't really help me much. So I think that's why she started doing the research. And then Friday came and I was still not any better. And I had like arthritis and like muscle pain all through my body, sore throat, still all this stuff. And I couldn't hardly move. Went to the hospital Friday and tried to tell them like, "Hey, what about this rare disease?" And they're just like, it's rare. It's probably not it. It's probably just something viral and this and that. So again, they didn't give me anything. They just let me continue the prednisone that Wednesday did. Well, then Monday comes and still couldn't go back to work and had to go to the hospital. And finally, after like 6 hours there, which I ended up being there like 13 hours, but after like the first 6 or 7, they were getting ready to release me. And the doctor finally listened and he said, you know what? Let me go research. And so he went back and he said, okay, if indeed you have this, because it does match your symptoms, I will agree. He said there's 3 markers that would be elevated because all your blood work, all my blood work, everything was coming back great, by the way. So the doctors were like blown away. They were like, dude, your blood work is amazing. So they're like, we don't even understand how you're sick other than just maybe the viral part of it. Well, anyways, he said that if I had this rare disease, there's 3 markers that would be elevated and they're not in the normal blood screen. So he went ahead and said, don't go anywhere yet. I put some tests in. Let's draw some more blood. They already had me on tap. They already had that, in my freaking arm, see, but they had, so they drew more blood. And sure enough, a couple hours later, like midnight or something, I don't know. He comes and is like, hey, he goes, you have Still's disease. So it's a very rare, like 1 in a million, thing. And it's so rare that the doctor actually had to go into a European medical journal to find out some answers of, what he had to find out, like what to test for and all that stuff. But all 3 of those markers were elevated. One of them was my iron. I know one of the 3 was iron. And he said that, like, for example, in a lot of normal people, you could be ranged like, I don't know, 400 or 500 could be like normal levels for iron. And mine's like 5,000. So basically it was like my immune system turned on, or those markers turned on from that Still's disease, and they won't turn off, or they weren't turning off. So it was just like attacking my muscles. So they've been using a higher dose of steroids to help bring me down, plus some anti-inflammatory like ibuprofen. So I've been taking that, and of course they ran some IV fluids in me, some proteins for my muscles to help because of all the soreness. Every muscle was sore, every joint was hurting. But so by the time I left there at like Tuesday, 3 a.m. I've so far since then, the last 2.5 days, I've felt pretty good. I wake up, I eat a few eggs and bacon and have my prednisone dose. And then I have my dinner usually, later on. And so I'm trying not to let the prednisone like cause any hunger issues or anything like that. I'm eating satiating foods, so it doesn't affect me much. So yeah, that's about it. So I've been able to walk around, no sore throat anymore, no joint pain, little teeny soreness in some muscles occasionally, but nothing like at all. I've been feeling really normal today. I want to go back to work, to my day job. I really can't wait. They said I couldn't go back till Monday. So I still can't go back tomorrow, but I want to. I want to so bad. I hate missing work, believe it or not. I really enjoy doing my jobs and having time off, like paid time off. I don't want to keep using up my time off. I have vacation stuff coming up. So, but anyways, that's about all I got for you guys tonight. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and we will see you guys next Thursday. Or wait, no. Oh, shit. Okay, so you guys won't see me next Thursday, but we may, if I can, depending, we might try to stream Wednesday. Okay. If I can't, there's a lot that's starting to happen, and we're getting into October. So the first 4 Octobers, I'm going to be doing the first 4 Thursdays. So actually, we may have to start changing the stream to like Wednesdays for like the next month or 5 weeks or so. Okay, guys. So keep that in mind, that if you want to watch me next week, it's probably going to start being on Wednesdays. All right, guys. We'll see you then. Bye.